Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, the Head. Welcome back to the Baseball Head 2. And hopefully you like this video. And hit that subscribe button. So as you know, the Mets signed Bo Bichette, stole him away from the Philadelphia Phillies. It's not the first time the Mets have stolen something from the Phillies. Well, you know, ever since 2007, 2008, when they stole divisions 2 years in a row, you know, Mets got to get back even some way. And, of course, the Mets have destroyed the Phillies at Citi Field. I can't remember the last time the Phillies have beaten the Mets at Citi Field. 2-3 years, is it? Something like that. And, of course, the Mets beat them in the postseason in 2024. First time they ever faced each other. And as you know, the Mets threw a no-hitter against the Phillies in 2022. Now, I went to Philadelphia in September 2024. I got invited. Had great seats, sat behind the plate. But the one thing that was interesting was how the fans talked about the club, talked about the Mets. There was a lady sitting in front of us, and she's like, "Oh, the Mets are our rival." And I'm thinking, growing up, I never thought the Phillies were the Mets' rivals. Never. Never once. I still don't think that way. Maybe they are. I don't think that way. I always thought the Cardinals were the Mets' rival, the Cubs, the Pirates, the Braves, the Phillies. No way. I didn't think that way until 2007. 2008. Certainly didn't think that when I was going down there. But it seems that the Philadelphia Phillies fans are very obsessed with, our New York Mets, America's team. And this continues on. The sort of the level of the meltdown of the Bo Bichette signing, it's funny to watch it because they are beside themselves. Because they had him, they were going to sign him. They had him. I'm not exaggerating. The Phillies had him signed. But then once the whole thing with Tucker fell apart, the Mets had to pivot very quickly, and they had all these things lined up with Bichette. Don't drag your feet on a player, I will say that. Don't drag your feet. Don't drag your feet. I got this interesting article from Awful Announcing, as always. And what's interesting about this is even the broadcasters, folks, get so upset when the Mets win games, when the Mets win out on these free agents. I just don't get it. I mean, they've been winning divisions. They beat the Mets. Again, they beat the Mets in 2007, although that's very shaky, in my opinion. And we'll get into that very soon in this video. This is from Awful Announcing. Let me read you the headlines. It's ridiculous. Phillies broadcaster insists Mets are losers. Well, they did win getting Bo Bichette. Ben Davis believes the Mets give off the vibe that they're just a losing organization. No. That's all made up bullshit. It's all made up bullshit. It really is. Nearly a week has passed since Bo Bichette spurned a long-term deal from the Phillies to sign with the New York Mets, and the Philadelphia faithful still haven't moved on. They might never move on. Their NL East rivals are having an offseason to remember. While the Phillies running back with the same underperforming core, the Mets have had Bo Bichette, Freddie Peralta, which was a major trade for the Mets, Tobias Myers, and Luis Robert Jr., among others. But one Philadelphia broadcaster remains unconvinced that the team in Queens is committed to winning. Ben Davis, who often fills in as the Phillies' color voice for John Kruk, called the Mets losers, dismissing Bichette's claim at his introductory press conference that New York's commitment to winning attracted him. Ben Davis, who was the second pick in the 1995 draft to the Padres, a washed-up, failed player. What a waste. I don't know what happened there. He was a catcher. What a waste. Quote, "It's a joke," Davis said. "You're just going to go where you get the best deal for you and get the most money. whether you stunk or not, you're still going to get the most money possible. And the fact that there's a losing organization up there, it just is, there's something about them that they give off the vibe that they lose. Ben, I'm sure if you were, I think there's a little jealousy here. Because Ben would have done the same thing. He would have taken the most money possible. They're the Mets, so naturally, by virtue, they're losers according to him, even though the Phillies own the worst winning percentage in MLB history. Quote, they give off the vibe that they're just a losing organization, Davis added. And the fact that he says that they're committed to winning, there's only a handful of teams that aren't committed to winning. But the fact that he says that, like the Phillies aren't, come on, man. Blow that smoke somewhere else, He's just trying to be nice, dude. The Phillies offered Bichette a 7-year, $200 million contract, or $28.5 million annually. The Mets countered with 3 years of $126 million, $42 million per year, with opt-outs after each of the first 2 seasons. Bichette chose the Mets deal, and it happened quick. The difference came down to structure. The Phillies don't offer opt-outs. Bryce Harper doesn't have one. Trey Turner doesn't have one. Dombrowski said Tuesday he doesn't believe in them and won't change that philosophy. So Bichette took the Mets' flexibility and higher annual salary over Philadelphia's long-term security. Dombrowski and the Phillies are antiquated in how they're doing business. You have to give out opt-outs. That's how it is now. That way the players can get more money and then go back on the market the following year. They have a big year, they get more money. The Phillies responded by re-signing JT Realmuto and running back the same core that flamed out in the NLDS 2 straight years. But Davis insists the Mets are the team that still gives off the loser vibes. No, their broadcasters are a bunch of losers, and fans are a bunch of losers for the most part. I remember in 2021 when they were still having the sort of limited lockdown, when they would show the broadcasts, when the Mets would go down to Philadelphia and they would show broadcasts of what was going on down there. The thing that was very interesting was how during the broadcasts, they would always focus on the Mets fans in the stands. So this is how into the heads that the Mets are and the Met fans are to the Phillies fans. It's the strangest thing. Philadelphia broadcasters go after the Met fans that are sitting in the stadium. You should be happy that they're there, buying tickets, buying the food, maybe get some memorabilia for friends or for family or whatever. No, they complain. They make fun of them. They belittle them. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen from a broadcast. I'm in New York. I know it's not like this anywhere else, okay, with other teams. And I watch all the games on MLB Network when they put them on from all over the ballpark, all over the state, all over the country. Seattle, San Francisco, Miami games, Toronto. Everywhere. Boston. They're the only broadcast that goes after the opposing team's fans. It's the weirdest thing. But again, they've not been able to beat the Mets at Citi Field in a long time. The Mets beat them in the playoffs when they had to. Now, this thing about 2007, 2008, I've sort of come to believe that those teams were doing all kinds of shenanigans based on the reputation of their former manager, Charlie Manuel, who in 2010, that team was accused of stealing signs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff in Philadelphia. There's also a manager that when he's with the Indians in Cleveland, that they were kind of doing that there too. So your host, putting the Columbo brain that I have, puts 2 and 2 together, and they were probably doing things down there in Philadelphia that probably weren't honest. Also, it's very odd that former players like Chase Utley, Cole Hamels, and Jimmy Rollins still go after the Mets, still belittle the Mets, still go after the Mets and their fans. It makes me feel like that's a guilty conscience. How many times do you have acceptance speeches for getting into these team Hall of Fames, and the player goes after the team that they beat? Well, Cole Hamels did that a few years ago. He got into their Hall of Fame in Philadelphia, and he did more than mention the Mets. He attacked the Mets. Jimmy Rollins did the same thing, and it's like, why? Who cares? Former players don't do that kind of stuff. So it's either a guilty conscience because they know. I would also say this. The 2007 Mets had 4 Hall of Famers on it. 4. The 2017 does not have any Hall of Famers on it with the Phillies. Okay? Same thing with 2008. The Mets could have 5 or 6 Hall of Famers on those teams if things were done honestly. Because you can see Carlos Delgado going in and possibly David Wright. Because David looks like he's trending upward in the vote. But as you know, the 4 players are Pedro Martinez, Billy Wagner, Tom Glavine, and Carlos Beltran now. And I think it's a lot of the continued attacks on those teams tells me that something, human nature being human nature, something's up with that. But anyway, Ben Davis is a washed-up ball player. Nobody of note. John Kruk is a different story, and John Kruk doesn't go after the Mets like this. He doesn't do that. John Kruk is a sort of a different kind of character. He doesn't really attack the Mets in a nasty way like this. They're losers because they took a player away from your team. This doesn't make any sense. No, this is how they think in the backwards bizarro world. You took a player from that we wanted, but you're the losers. You act like losers. No, they act like winners. Okay. Let's sort of give, Ben Davis a bit of a history lesson. Since 2011, the Mets have 2 players who've had batting titles. They've won 3 Cy Young Awards. They have had 2 Rookie of the Years. They've made a World Series appearance. They have the best player in the game. One of the best players in the game. This is a team that has not lost 100 games since 1993. Okay? This is a team that hasn't lost 100 games like 3 times in the last 40, 50 years. The Phillies have had a very odd history because they were in baseball for almost 100 years and they didn't win anything. It wasn't until 1980 that they actually won something because they signed Pete Rose to help that team out and teach them how to win. That was a losing organization when it came to Major League Baseball. For 80 years, they were a team that had the worst collapse ever up until they cheated in 2007 and 2008. It is mathematically impossible, folks, to have the kind of collapse the Mets have. Because what you need, you have to have so many things going in your favor, including the other team winning. Okay? It is mathematically impossible. That's why for the 130-year history of the game, it only happened 1 time. Or maybe 2 times, I guess, with the 51 Dodgers. But it's mathematically... But that team, by the way, the 51 Giants were stealing signs. Okay? So it is mathematically impossible to do stuff like this. Okay? Just based on the length of the season, based on the improbability. And there's a lot of factors you got to take into account. It makes no sense. That's why it's very suspicious that happened in 2007, looking back on it. And some of the performances even with the New York Met players, specifically Ali Perez, Tom Glavine. Those guys destroyed them that season. Something very fishy happened with them, particularly with Ali Perez. Because he did 2 years in a row, by the way. And same thing with 2025, but that's a little bit different. That was a slow draining of the blood out of the body. But if you win and sign a player, does that make you a losing team? No. Makes no sense. Like I said, this is the kind of stuff you see in the backwards bizarro world. Well, you let me know what you think about this video, and of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut too. You know, when I started doing this channel and started talking about the different teams, the most thin-skinned group that I noticed was the Brave fans. They're very thin-skinned. But the Phillies fans in reality are worse. I mean, very, very bad. Because this extends to the broadcasters too. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.